How did you and your wife, Representative Gabby Giffords, how did you guys meet?
We met on a trip to China about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, something like that. It was like a young leaders forum, bunch of people from the United States, bunch from China. And the whole idea is find some mid-career people. On our side, it was some folks in government or the military, folks from business, the arts, a guy named Damien Wetzel, who runs Juilliard, who was a ballet dancer, was part of our group. Architect that I was out to dinner with last night, Greg Pasquarelli, who runs an architecture firm called Shop. But this was over 20 years ago. She was a state senator. I was an astronaut. And then similar people on the Chinese side. And it's kind of trying to build some, relationships.
And in the movie of your meet cute, is it electric?
I mean, it was actually the second trip a year later that Gabby asked me to go on a date.
She asked you.
She asked me on a date.
What's up with that, Captain?
Our first date was the Florence State Prison, death row. She said she needed somebody to come with her kind of halfway between Tucson and Phoenix. And she said, hey, nobody really wants to go with me to visit death row. And I'm like, I'm in. Sounds cool. So that was our first date.
Did you know it was a date?
I did not. I found out later. She didn't tell me that until later. She had an angle.
So I'm getting a very sharp picture of what your dynamic is like already.
Right.
I have her as the person who is frankly taking a leadership role, and you are a coward so far in the story.
She was the one who, wanted to get to know each other a little bit better, and no better place, right, than a prison.
I mean, you guys presumably you stay in touch. You go on actual dates that are mutually disclosed.
We did. We went to dinner that night, and then and then after that, it was I'd wound up seeing her every couple of weeks for a while, and then I would say probably 6 months in, it was like kind of a real relationship.
Right. I mean, just for those who are unfamiliar with Gabby Giffords and her political trajectory.
Right.
This is a supernova in American politics.
This is a victory for all of us tonight. Not just the Democrats, but the independents, the Republicans, the Greens, the Libertarians, and the Vegetarians. I want to thank each and every one of you. Tonight. My fiance, Mark Kelly, my parents.
Yeah, there was a magazine, and she had this whole page talking about her. She ran her family's tire and automotive business. She was in the state house. Now she's in the state Senate. Maybe someday she'll run for Congress. And in the corner, in the lower left or right corner, there was another little article about a state senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, on the same page.
But like the smaller real estate.
The smaller. Oh, yeah. He got the little corner. She had the whole page.
Also receiving votes.
Yes. She got the whole page. He got the little corner.
And so the date, for people who don't know, was January 8th, 2011. And you, that day, were where doing what?
I was in Houston, Texas. It was a Saturday morning. I was training for what was going to be my fourth space shuttle mission, my second mission as the commander. It was also going to be the last flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour, which is a pretty big deal to get picked for one of the last shuttle flights.
It's kind of sad the space shuttle's going to be retired. It's an incredible vehicle. I mean, there's never been anything like it.
So it was a Saturday morning. I was at home with my kids, Claudia and Claire, and I was talking to Claudia about something, some dude, and I get a call from Gabby's chief of staff. And I pick up the phone, and she says, Mark, I don't know how to tell you this, but Gabby's been shot.
Updating our top story now, a gunman shot Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and several others today at an outdoor event in Tucson, Arizona. Congresswoman Giffords is a Democrat just beginning her third term in the House. She is 40 years old and the wife of astronaut Mark Kelly. Police have a suspect.
And the immediate thing that goes through my head is, okay, what do we do now? She's probably like shot in the arm or the shoulder, or something was what was running through my mind. She didn't have much information. We hung up. I put the phone down at a pool table in the house. I remember putting it on the pool table, and then a few minutes later, I thought to myself, did I really just get that call? And I walked back over and I pick up the phone to see that I had this incoming call. I was like, this is like crazy. And then either she called me back or I called her back. It's disputed, after all these years, I'm not sure. But then when I spoke to her again a few minutes later, she says, okay, she's been shot in the head. And that is really like the gut punch, much more significant. Now at that moment, that both of our lives have changed forever.
We've got multiple calls. They have not called us for assistance. I'm assuming they're quite 10-6 at this point. We've been informed Gabby Giffords is involved. Multiple parties out on the sidewalk. I believe I'm hearing county rolling up right now.
And then I have to figure out how am I going to get to Tucson in a hurry. I had a friend with a private airplane, so we get eventually like an hour later, I'm on his airplane, and the airplane had TV on it. We're flying to Tucson, and then CNN, MSNBC, Fox News all pronounce her dead.
Hello, I'm Martin Savage, CNN Center in Atlanta. We are following breaking news coming out of Tucson, Arizona.
Jamie, I have one very reliable source on Capitol Hill confirming that Congresswoman Gabby Giffords has died. Local reports.
It is just so devastating. Like your world is just crumbled. And I go into the bathroom. My kids say that's the first time they've ever seen me like really shaken and broken up. And I got up and walked into the bathroom. And then 30 minutes later.
Is anybody injured? Did you say Gabrielle Giffords was hit? She's hit. Okay. I believe she's breathing. She was breathing. She still had the pulse.
They say, nope, made a mistake. She's still alive.
Can you explain what it feels like to be told via every national news network that your wife has been killed, only to then discover?
Yeah, you don't know, right? And you're still stuck on an airplane. You got an hour flight. You got to land. You got to get there. And it wasn't until I got into the hospital, into the room with the trauma surgeon, a guy named Peter Rees, former Navy trauma surgeon, but he said something like, I'm not going to allow her to die. He's that kind of doctor.
That's what I would like.
That's what you like.
My
That's
spouse's
what you want.
doctor to tell me.
Yeah. And what happened to Charlie Kirk brought me back to that day. And I really feel for Erica Kirk and how horrible this has been for her and what that felt like for me on January 2011, what she went through. Now, in our case, Gabby survived. These kids are going to spend their whole lives. They're so young, they're probably not even going to have memories of their dad. How awful is that?
Yeah.
And Charlie Kirk and I didn't agree on hardly anything.
He was a constituent.
He was a constituent. Yep.
Arizonan.
I would help him as a constituent but politically we're like on different islands. But one thing I did agree with was his right to be there, talking about issues that he cared about. I would fight. I'd go to war to defend his right to do that.
And you lived your life in the service of that very, I would say, increasingly endangered premise as well. The thing that your wife was doing, by the way, for those who aren't familiar with just what she was up to.
She was speaking to her constituents.
A series of meetings called Congress on Your Corner.
Yeah. Standing outside of a Safeway where people would line up to talk to her. Kind of similar to what Charlie Kirk was doing, smaller scale, but she was a member of Congress and just talking to people individually about What do they care about? And what problems do they have that she can help solve? She'd have staff members there to support, this event and get people's information. And yeah, it's all, it's about freedom of speech and listening to your constituents.
Yes, being accessible as a person working in American politics in the way that American politics was ultimately, I thought, designed to enable. And just the details on this, I mean, it was a point blank range.
Oh, about this distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This table, you and me, above her left eye, 6 people were killed by the gunman, including a U.S. District Court judge. The gunman used a semi-automatic pistol with a 33-round magazine.
Yeah, Glock, same exact gun I flew in combat with. Glock 9mm, but a high-capacity magazine. So the gun with the magazine, it looks like a Uzi because the magazine sticks out the bottom of the pistol grip.
And had Gabby, or Gabrielle, I guess?
Yeah, I used to call her Gabrielle. And the way that changed was...
As many of you are aware, earlier today, a number of people were shot in Tucson, Arizona.
That day, President Obama goes to the podium in the White House.
Gabby Giffords was...
And says, Gabby Giffords. He starts to say Gabrielle. He stops halfway and says Gabby Giffords. And then after that, everybody called her Gabby. So even I changed eventually.
So what you're saying is that the dude with the inset on the National Journal page...
Changed her name.
Changed the name of the person with the big spread.
Yes. Before that, I think her mom and dad called her Gabby and their sister.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, but almost everybody else called her Gabrielle. Like on her signs, it was Gabrielle Giffords, her staff, and even me.
Well, the question of like how one's identity is reoriented after something like this.
Mm-hmm.
The name being just one, of course, feature of the evolution here. But truly, like the question of had this been contemplated, this possibility, an attempted political assassination, had she thought about that prior to it happening?
She was worried about it. There was an incident where a guy shows up at one of her events and rather agitated, gun falls out of his waistband and falls on the floor. He was not intending to do anything, but it was rather startling that this guy brought a gun to her event. So she was starting to get worried. There were threats. This was also at a time where there were like heightened political tensions and we were divided. Yes. It was 2011, more than halfway through the first Obama administration. We had the financial crisis in like 2008. We're kind of on the tail end of that, but we were rather divided politically. It's gotten worse since then. And I think Gabby was the first, as far as we could tell, the first female politician in our country that somebody tried to assassinate, like somebody in Congress. And it got a lot of attention. And 6 people died, including a 9-year-old girl, Christina Taylor Greene, who was born on 9/11, 2001. She would have been 24 years old this month, and had like very high-minded ideas about service and democracy, and just wanted to meet her congresswoman.
Right, the type
and was just there to talk to Gabby.
Yes,
we want them to care. We want them to show up. But I'll tell you what a good thing would be is to get people off the phones, doing the politics on social media the way, it's just like a lot of bias. You get fed your own opinion. You don't really see the other side. And it seems like the algorithms just push us further and further
No
away.
question.
Yeah.
No question.
So it'd be better to do it in person.
I do want to get to the premise of your wife survives.
Yep.
And the brain surgery, the piece of the skull. Could you just explain?
Yeah, so she got shot
Yeah.
right above her eye, left side, affects her right side of her body, so she's paralyzed. She can't really move her arm. She can move her right leg a little bit. She's got vision issues to the right. She still has like 7 bullet fragments, in her head. And they had to, because about the size of my hand, the skull was damaged enough that they eventually had to replace it with a prosthetic skull. They did that, by the way, while I was in space on the space shuttle.
Of course.
She had to have her final brain surgery on the day, actually, literally at the time I was rendezvousing with the International Space Station. And as a commander of the space shuttle, you have to fly the space shuttle manually to the space station. You got to get in front of it, and then you got to fly it within a couple inches of the space station, the accuracy. And you're both going at 17,500 miles an hour around the Earth. So that surgery happened while I was
doing surgery.
Doing that, yes. And then she was in the hospital for 6 months going through, this extensive rehab. She still does rehab today.
Yeah.
14 years later, speech therapy and physical therapy. And because you don't ever fully recover from that kind of injury, most people don't survive. I mean, thank God she survived.
Oh, it's shocking to go and for me to, and again, I was aware of this generally, but not specifically researching this. And now I'm looking at what she had to overcome. And it is insane.
It's kind of nuts.
Probabilistically.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, 90% of people that have that kind of injury, or 95% die. And most don't, recover to a point where you can have like a decent quality of life and work and accomplish things.
Right.
But she did, because she's tough. I mean, she does not quit. She is not a quitter. She doesn't give up. She doesn't think a lot about what happened. It's not a lot of like, poor me, this horrible thing happened to me. She's like, okay, this is the situation. She is a public servant at the highest level. It's actually good for me. She understands how hard this job is, serving in Congress, being in the U.S. Senate. And I've got like the most supportive spouse, I think, of any member of Congress. And it's because she's done the job.
Well,
so she knows what it's like.
I was looking at the timeline to that point, and I mean, it was less than 2 years after she gets shot in the head, and it's December 12th, 2012. It's Newtown, Connecticut. And of course, what we know is seared into our brains if you pay any degree of attention. It's 20 children between 6 and 7, 6 educators, the shooter's mother, the shooter himself. All of these people are killed. It's just over a year after Gabrielle gets shot, she gives a speech. And I want to play that speech and watch it together because I hadn't seen this before.
For Democrats and Republicans, speaking is difficult, but I need to say something important. Violence is a big problem. Too many children are dying. Too many children. We must do something. It will be hard, but the time is now. You must act. Be bold, be courageous. Americans are counting on you. Thank you.
She can deliver the goods. I mean, powerful.